Good morning, everybody. My name is Juliane Dammann. I work as a program director at GIZ in Lima, Peru, on the question of climate change, adaptation, and public investments. And I brought a question for you today. How to make public investments more resilient to climate change. And to get a quick start on this, I would like to show you a video. Yeah, so how to avoid a disaster, and what would it take to make better decisions, and what does it take to make infrastructure more resilient? This happened in Lima on March 16th, and there were several events alike all over the country. What happened is that the sea surface temperature started to increase and the Pacific trade winds collapsed. And in consequence, heavy storms and rainfalls hit the Andes, coming down to the coastal zone as flooding and mudslides. The Peruvians call this a coastal El Niño, a localized El Niño phenomenon. And the results of this phenomenon were 101 person died, 19 are still missing, more than 350 persons were injured. 130 persons lost everything, 140,000 persons lost everything what they owned, and the property of more than 900,000 persons was damaged. In total, more than 8,000 kilometers of road were either damaged or destroyed, 258 bridges destroyed, plus 417 damaged but not yet destroyed. So my main question still remains, what does it take to make infrastructure more resilient? And the answer will not surprise you, as it is a very old discussion indeed, and it has been discussed during the last days at the global platform as well. Good decisions are based on good information. In public investment projects, the quality of information determines the sustainability of public spending and in the long run of the development of a country. So in order to correctly analyze and approve public investment projects, the people involved in those, technicians and political decision makers, need the information to be large scale, meaning more information on a smaller geographic area, needs to be language adequate, understandable by everybody involved in the processes. It needs to be available and accessible to everybody, and it needs to be timely, meaning accurate at the moment somebody uses it. So let's have a look on how information, on good information, can help us to take the vulnerability analysis in public investment projects to make better decisions. Three factors determine how a system is receptive to the negative effects of climate change and how can it cope with them: exposure, sensitivity, and adaptive capacity. So how is our bridge affected by climate parameters? Lima lies in a topographic depression on a desert coastline, with the Andes formed as a wall containing high levels of humidity throughout the year. Extreme weather events are mainly due to higher precipitation that come down the Andes in form of floodings, landslides, and mudslides. So our river Rimac, that is the river that flows below the collapsed bridge we saw in the video, crosses the city from east to west and is also the main discharge channel for the rainfalls that happen in higher altitudes. In comparison to a normal mean, the water flow rate in March 2017 tripled. How is our system, our bridge, sensitive to that climate exposure we just saw? We have here a picture of the river that flows below our bridge. Our bridge is there, I hope you can see it. And we have here on the picture as well a water treatment facility right below the bridge. Not on the picture are some hydroelectric power plants outside the city. So in three factors made the water flow rate so critical for our bridge. First, the rainfalls brought a lot of sediments down the Andes. And the water treatment facility and the hydroelectric power plants had to close down. And especially the days before the collapse of the bridge, they closed down and the water flowed directly into the river. That made the higher water pressure. Second factor is the amplitude of the river. As we can see here, it is quite different. In comparison to 1930, the river is 7 times narrower than 1930 today. So growing urbanization and growing population has reduced the normal span from 175 meters to 25 meters. Our bridge is directly located at the beginning of that narrower part where the water pressure is highest. And the third factor is the erosion. As you could see in the video, there's no vegetation. The soil is extremely erosive, and the use of the river as a waste disposal and a highly degradation of the ecosystem of the river contributed to that situation. So the fast-running waters in the lower basin of the river Rimac eroded not only the ground of the river but also the sides of the river, taking the sand with it, and that led in the end to the collapse of the bridge. Let's turn a look on the population of that area. The adaptive capacity of the population in that zone is extremely low. This is due to lack of social cohesion. 30% of the population are considered as recently arrived. That means they don't live more than 5 years in that area. They don't know the area. The second is there are a lot of vulnerable, especially vulnerable people. 35% of the population is or either younger than 10 years or older than 65 years. And we have a very fragile construction structure. 80% of the houses in that zone are not connected to a sewage system. What can we take from this analysis? What can we take away? There's a fly here. What can we take away from this analysis? We have very concrete reasons why this particular bridge collapsed. We can see a very significant vulnerability in the zone, and we have ideas on how to reduce future risks. This is not difficult. To wrap this up, we need to look at the forests and not only at the trees. In order to make better decisions in public investment projects, to make infrastructure more resilient, the information needs to be large scale, not only looking at one particular disaster, but looking at the whole zone where the disaster occurred. We have the difference of the impact zone and the zone where the problem started in the case of our bridge, the hydroelectric power plants. The information needs to be language adequate. It means everybody involved in the processes needs to understand the relevance and the consequences. Third, the information needs to be available, accessible. That means interinstitutional dialogue to make, or either to come up with the information or to connect the information that exists so that it is useful in an analysis. And as a fourth factor, the information needs to be timely. That means accurate not only for one moment and not only for one time span, but taking the past development into account, as we saw. When all information is in place, you can take better decisions. And in order to be prepared, you need to invest in prevention. Thank you very much.